There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a no spend weekend or no spend week, and some people have no spend months. And again, totally okay. I want to elaborate on this a minute. Let's talk about this, and I'll be right back. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Jan. Welcome to another episode of my channel, Save Money More with Jan channel. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having a no spend week, no spend weekend, no spend month. I have no qualms about that, but I do want to elaborate on something. There is a huge difference between choosing to have a no spend week, month, etc., as opposed to a can't spend no week, month, weekend, etc. You see where I'm going with this? I don't want us to be in a position that we're in the position of not being able to spend, as opposed to, well, you know what? Right now, I choose on purpose, deliberately, to not spend X number of time. There is an incredible difference between deliberately choosing or can't. So we need to keep our options open. So one of the ways we could do that is to always be prepared. Okay. And I do believe in preparing for things in shorter term, in baby bites. You see where I'm going with this? All right. So let's get started. I have some specific items, actionable steps that we can take to boost our own grocery budget. We're in charge of that. We are the CEOs of our kitchens, of our wallets, etc. And I truly believe we have to really grab hold of that thought that we are in charge of that. So we need to boost our own grocery budget. But I'm specifically talking about food items. Like other items are pretty much negotiable, but you can't really negotiate food, the necessity of the idea of eating. We have to eat. It's part of our health. It's part of, to have nutrition. This is a must. There's no negotiation on that. And please, by all means, get the necessary help that is available to everyone who's having true struggle, with their food budget. Don't forget to do that. Don't forget to check that out. All right. Here's some strong suggestions. So I strongly suggest that people should consider the following actions. One, create or make or cook a week's worth of freezer casseroles. Now, Jan, why would I want to do that? I always said this, and people might remember me for saying this. Food in the freezer is literally money in the bank. So you could create your own little food bank account, if you will. All right, honestly, you really, really could. So let's say that you're making something as simple as let's say baked ziti, for example. I call it simple because you're basically just assembling things. And it tends to yield a lot of stuff. Now, depending on the size of your family, if you're going to make one, might as well take the time to make two. Okay. And put away either in individual servings, if that's your preference, or put it away in one big baking tray, those aluminum pans. Maybe that's best for you to wrap things up and put in your freezer and label and date. And you don't have to cook it, you just have to cook the pasta and just assemble the stuff and put it away. That goes double for macaroni and cheese. Certain meals are really, really better for your freezer. And I'm just telling you, it's a great thing. Even soups and stews can be stored away. If we're mindful that we make a little bit extra all the time and put it away, that is your reassurance. That is your reassurance that perhaps 1 week or two, you don't need to go to the grocery store because you need to clean out your freezer. That's a good thing to be able to do. That is a good thing to be able to do. To have extra is a good thing as opposed to not having enough. I much rather have extra than not enough. You agree on that? I'm sure you do, but let me know in the comment section below. All right. So another good action step would be to purchase a food staple that you presently do not have. But how would you know unless you take inventory and keeping track of your stockpile in your pantry items? It is so good to know that, well, you don't have something. Why is that good to know? So you don't run into a problem in the future. Knowledge is power. If you need some, let's say, a pantry item, things like Crisco or just, regular oil on hand, next time you hit the grocery aisle, make sure you pick that up, but you have to write it down. There's a lot to be said about making lists and write it down, honestly. So there are some wonderful products. For example, now suppose you have not tended to keep things like baking supplies in your, let's say, stockpile if you're beginning. I think it's a great place to start. And I mentioned that on a recent video, and you can look that up because it wasn't listed all that long ago. Next, another very important action step to take. We need to always be proactive. That's why I like to outline actionable steps that we could take, not just sit around, mope, groan, and complain and whine, woe is me. No, woe is not us. We can take actionable steps. All right. Next, actionable step. We need to be a bit of a bean counter. One such way is thinking of meals in terms of components. What do I mean by that, Jen? Well, this is what I mean by that. Example, let's take breakfast. Sometimes we overtly elaborate the breakfast meal. I could see it on occasion, like let's say on a nice weekend, like when you have that leisurely time. But on the regular Monday through Friday, hustling and bustling time of the morning, when we get back into the swing of things. I know recently we've been sidetracked with the holidays, but now that we're hitting the rhythm of real life again and we're back in the swing of things, we don't need to create a 3 or 4 component breakfast, 3 or 4 food items. Keep it simple. I do believe in the keep it simple system. It really, really happens. It really, really happens to work. Example, keep it to 2. Breakfast, keep to 2 components. Example, toast and coffee. Or let's say eggs and muffins. Or yogurt and peanut butter. You see where I'm going with this? Now, we could dial the notch up a little bit for lunch and for dinner. What do you mean by that? We could have 3 or 4 meal components. If your budget allows up to 4, if that's what you love, great. But if your budget says, well, maybe at this time 3 is better, what kind of components, Jen? Well, very simply put, example, like our moms used to do back in the day, a starch, a veggie, and a protein. If you don't want a veggie, why not have a starch and a fruit and a protein? It still works. It still does similar tricks. I'm just saying. This is how we could keep track better. We could count how many components we need for that week. Okay, we could literally count. Let's say that we're shopping for 7 days, for a 7-day period, and we're shopping only for breakfast. And we keep it down to 2 components. And if we do the math, if it's just going to be a coffee and a toast week, that's only the 2 components. Make sure you have enough for your coffee. Make sure you have enough for your bread. You see where I'm going with that? Does that not make sense? So you could write that down easily and manage easily. And for lunch too. Maybe sometimes people prefer to keep it to the 2 again for lunchtime to save further and further. Remember, as we're saving and we're going along, we're having extra money left over to the side to prepare to continue to build our stockpile, our longer term, and the things that we concurrently need. We need to be more open to utilizing things like that oil, for example. Doesn't have to be a ton of oil. I think sometimes people are too liberal, pouring out oil. I don't know why I just get that impression. Maybe I'm wrong. But I know for myself, I keep it to 1 or 2 turns of the pan. That's what does it for me. And it also depends on your recipe, too. There are tricks you could do. Keeping the meal simple, counting, being a bit of a bean counter, and being aware. You want to get to the point of being, well, ahead of the game. And those freeze the casserole ideas, even if you do 1 extra casserole a week, think about this for a minute. 1 extra casserole to freeze a week, at the end of a month period, you already put away 4 completed casseroles. You're building up your stockpile in your freezer. So be mindful of the sales that are out there. in your individual location. Know that sales are cyclical. Let's say every 6 weeks, let's say boneless chicken breast, for example, might go on sale in your neighborhood. It all depends. We have to be proactive. We need to take actionable steps, and it can be done. Instead of crying the blues and the woe is me, put that to the side and forget about it and start empowering ourselves with the knowledge and the power that we could always use.